Jones is not having a good week. And I don't say weekend because this is going to last for a couple of days. Van Jones is not having a good week. He recently appeared on Bill Maher's show, and he made some statements that is not sitting right with a lot of people. Liberals, some conservatives, some people who are not political at all. And what made it even worse is after he said what he said, the audience cheered. So I'm going to show you what Van Jones said and why a lot of people are giving him hell. We'll get into his so-called apology. And then I'm going to show you who Van Jones really is. This is the statement heard around the world that has people handing Van Jones his ass.
But isn't part of that because we had to fold everything into critical race theory, and somehow the Middle East became part of,
I see it differently. And I love this conversation because I think people, those of us who went to college, give a lot more credit to college courses for how the world works than I do. This is not about critical race theory on college campuses. This is about Iran. Iran and Qatar have come up with a disinformation campaign that they are running through TikTok and Instagram that is massive. If you are a young person, you open up your phone and all you see is dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, right. Diddy, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby. Like, that's basically your whole feed. So that's not DEI. That is a geopolitical adversary that is deliberately trying to divide the West against itself.
That view is not. Isn't
Let's hear it again.
Part of that because we had to fold everything into critical race theory, and somehow the Middle East became part of,
I see it differently. And I love this conversation because I think people, those of us who went to college, give a lot more credit to college courses for how the world works than I do. This is not about critical race theory on college campuses. This is about Iran. Iran and Qatar have come up with a disinformation campaign.
Does he have any evidence to prove that? Does he have any evidence to prove that Iran and Qatar, by the way, is an ally of the United States? As Professor Morandi was telling you guys, it's a proxy of the US. Does he have any evidence that proves that Iran and Qatar are running disinformation campaigns on social media, on TikTok, etc.? But we do have evidence that Israel is paying influencers to run disinformation campaigns about Israel and Gaza. But he doesn't say that, and there's a reason why. So, first problem. Second problem.
That they are running through TikTok and Instagram that is massive. If you are a young person, you open up your phone and all you see is dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, right. Diddy, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby.
If you are a young person and that's all you see, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, dead Gaza baby, Diddy, dead Gaza baby, that's what you're seeing because that's what's happening. There was nothing funny about that. It also leads to this idea that Van Jones is basically trying to say the videos that you are seeing of the dead Gaza babies are disinformation campaigns activated by Iran and Qatar. Everybody make the connection. Van Jones is trying to downplay the death toll in Gaza, the number of babies that have been killed in Gaza. He's trying to downplay it. There are reasons for this. He turned off the comments, by the way. He turned off the comments for his apology, which we'll get to in just a second. But I got to show you this. 8 years ago, Van Jones was on CNN and he asked this question after Donald Trump won in 2016. And he said, how do I explain this to my children? Almost in tears. You know, he liked to cry. How do I explain this to my children? So I just want to take you back to that moment just to show you what a hypocrite Van Jones is. Remember this?
First of all, congratulations. Both of you guys
We're not there yet.
Well, you're further than anybody said you would be. And I have enough class, and I was raised well enough to say when you outdo,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
When you outdo expectations, good for you. But there's another side to this. People have talked about a miracle. I'm hearing about a nightmare. It's hard to be a parent tonight for a lot of us. You tell your kids, don't be a bully. You tell your kids, don't be a bigot. You tell your kids, do your homework and be prepared. And then you have this outcome, and you have people putting children to bed tonight, and they're afraid of breakfast. They're afraid of, how do I explain this to my children? I have Muslim friends who are texting me tonight saying, should I leave the country?
Pause. Because you see, I wanted to take you back to these remarks from Van Jones when Donald Trump was about to win the election. That's when they were saying it was too close to call in those swing states there, with the exception of New Hampshire, which isn't really a swing state. So I had to show you this. You know why? Because he said, people are saying, how do I explain this to my children? And he said, I have Muslim friends asking, should I leave the country? That was Van Jones 8 years ago. So let's turn this question around on Van. Van, after you said dead baby, dead baby, dead baby, and alluded to this being just disinformation and propaganda by Iran and Qatar, how do you explain that to your children? How do you explain the way that you tried to downplay the death of Palestinian babies to your children, Van Jones? How do you explain that? You brought up 8 years ago, your Muslim friends were asking, should I leave the country? Do you still have those Muslim friends? How do you explain to your Muslim friends the way that you responded there on Bill Maher's show about dead babies? How do you explain that? Do you still have those friends anymore? Because you've been in the pocket of Israel for quite a minute. Quite a minute. This is a perfect example of a black face in a high place. Van Jones, the same guy who came forward years ago, crying on CNN. Oh, what I think about when Joe Biden won is just how proud of my children, just how proud we'll all be. I just keep thinking about George Floyd and what black men go through in this country, and sitting there crying and crying, crying. Mr. Loves civil rights for black people here in the US. The way that Van Jones has taken a pivot is absolutely disgusting. Because I say this again, you can't be pro civil rights and downplaying what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza, trying to pretend like people aren't being killed, babies aren't being slaughtered. You can't be pro civil rights and back a genocidal, evil Zionist state full of supremacists. You can't have it both ways. Pass it on to your friends. This is why I said before, black people supporting Israel, what the hell is wrong with you? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't sit up here, Van Jones, and talk about black men are treated unfairly in this country. Black men are arrested at an enormous rate. The way that black people are treated in this country, which we can provide evidence to prove those things are true. But you can't sit up there and say you're for civil rights and you're for black people having some type of black liberation in this country, and you are shutting down that same type of liberation for Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, and you're backing a genocidal supremacist state. You can't have it both ways. That goes to all of them. But see, Van got paid. Some of us remember Van Jones got paid. There was a different type of Van Jones many years ago. In fact, Max Blumenthal points this out from 2011. I saw Van Jones sporting a keffiyeh at a memorial for Juliano Maricamis in NYC in 2011. 14 years later, he's raking in millions from Israel and its US cutouts and joking about dead Palestinian babies with Bill Maher. Van Jones is the biggest sellout in media I've met. Taylor Lorenz. This is Nazi shit, and it shows the complete disregard these monsters have for human life. Van Jones, it's so many people ratioed Van Jones. I can't put them all here, including people who actually liked Van Jones came after him. So he issues 2 apologies. One here to Dr. Omar Salman. Let's go to him first. He said, truly disgraceful and vile, Van Jones. I'm sorry dead Gaza babies bother you so much. Maybe tell the people paying you to put lipstick on a genocide and stop killing them. That's Dr. Omar. Van Jones responds to him, yeah, I messed up on this one, and I'm sorry. I was trying to raise awareness about foreign adversaries creating chaos online, which is undermining democracy everywhere. But what I said was easily misunderstood, and the way I said it was flat out insensitive. Babies are dying every day in Gaza. Nobody should dispute that fact or make light of it in any way. To the people living in fear and burying family members every day of all ages, I apologize. So let me make something clear. That's the first apology. You apologize because you got called out. And you got called out by people who actually supported you. You got called out by people who like Van Jones. Van Jones tries to have it both ways. Van Jones wants to be one of those progressives except for Palestine. You see, he want to try to side with like the Bernie progressive policies on one hand. And then on the other hand, he want to try to say, well, I'm going to go to the conservative convention and say, the conservatives really went after what they wanted. Donald Trump's doing a good job here. He wants to have it both ways. He sat right there on Bill Maher's show. Bill Maher talked down about CRT and all these types of things, and he just sits up there and nods along with Bill Maher. Van Jones is whoever you want him to be at that moment in time. You don't really stand for any damn thing. You took money that you have to be held accountable for. So you caught up in like this pretzel of sorts. But that's what he wanted to do. That's what he wanted. The second apology that came from Van Jones. I made a comment on Real Time with Bill Maher about the war in Gaza that was insensitive and hurtful. I apologize. The suffering of the people of Gaza, especially the children, is not a punchline. I'm deeply sorry it came across that way. What's happening to children in Gaza is heartbreaking. As a father, I can't begin to imagine the pain their parents are enduring, unable to protect their kids from unimaginable harm. I am praying and working for an immediate end to this war and for peace and safety for every family caught in its path. I'm truly sorry for my pain my words caused to people who are already suffering more than anyone should. And then let me show you something. Can you comment to this? Nope, you can't reply. He made it so that no one could reply to this. So here's the thing. Van Jones ain't sorry. Why didn't Van Jones say that on Bill Maher's show? Because that's not what he's paid to say. He's not sorry. The only reason he's delivering an apology is because he got roasted by so many people, including those who actually liked him. Let me show you something. Don't let Van Jones fool you. Van Jones is a pathetic Hasbara propagandist who follows an account called Hot IDF Army Girls on Instagram. Watch this. Watch this. Check this out. And that's his account too. 1 million followers. Following, see, you can see this on Instagram. Hot IDF Girls. And if you go to Hot IDF Girls, followers, Van Jones. So Van Jones is in the pocket of Israel. Okay. He knew exactly what he was saying and the way that he said it. And this is not the first time. Can we go to part 2 here of Type VNC, please? This is not the first time. I called this out a while back. This guy is very sneaky. You pull this up here. Margaret Kimberly said Van Jones has been an apologist for genocide for a while. So glad I already hated him. That's coming from Margaret Kimberly from Black Agenda Report there. The Israel March in November 2023, where he got booed by pro-Israel people. Listen to this.
Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand here against hatred. Let's take a stand here against hatred of all kinds. Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims.
Many of us called this out at that point in time. He was speaking at that pro-Israel rally. Don't let Van Jones fool you. Van Jones don't care about those Palestinian babies. Van Jones is paid to care and be pro-Israel. He's in that camp. So there he was there, pushing back on Muslims. He's also cozied up with Rabbi Shmuley. I mean, you can't make this up, guys. It's so obvious.
Van Jones really is an American hero. He is such a friend of the Jewish community. He wears that pin on CNN. What I love about Van is that he makes so much sense, and he's so candid. And of course, we don't have to agree on everything. We're just, but the love that you have shown our community, and
the love that your community has shown my community for 100 years is where the sentence starts. And we've been together for 100 years. We're going to be together for 100 more. And it's an honor to be here today.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Just know that for you to be here on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz is a really big deal. Well, and our community really appreciates it. God bless you.
To be here with a legend like you is an honor beyond words. Appreciate you, brother.
Van Jones called this genocidal hack, Rabbi Shmuley. He called him a good brother. So you see this, I think Van Jones is getting a surprise this week because everybody's coming at him. We can go back again to this clip here. Listen to what he said about Israel here.
Supporting the wrong people. The Palestinians deserve all the support in the world. Their cause is just. They want human rights. They want dignity. They want sovereignty. That's beautiful. And it's been hijacked by a Nazi organization called Hamas, who are terrible. They are not freedom fighters. They're freedom takers. They are not interested in democracy. They're not interested in human rights. They're not interested in women's rights. They're not interested in gay rights.
See, those things apply to Israel, right? So he brings up the LGBTQ community. They can't get married in Israel either.
In anything that we care about over here. They are trying to destroy Israel way more than they're trying to help the Palestinians.
Yeah,
it's a Nazi organization, and I don't care if you're a Muslim Nazi, a Christian Nazi, a Jewish Nazi, a Buddhist Nazi. If you're a Nazi, I'm against you first, and then we work out everything else. So when you have a good cause that's been hijacked by bad people, that's tough. And so you got to be able to talk about this stuff honestly. But yeah, like I've had people pull money out of things I'm a part of, but who cares?
You care because you still wanted to be in the camp some way, shape, or form. So he mentions I've had people pull money out of things that I've been a part of. We're going to get to that in just a second. Hold on, folks.
Nothing compared to what those kids went through at the Nova Festival. Nothing compared to what the people went through at the kibbutz. You got to remember, I'm a progressive.
Yeah.
So Hamas attacked my people.
Yeah.
Those are my people.
Exactly.
On the kibbutz.
No. This is that whole progressive except Palestine BS. And this is what I told you guys before. We cannot work with any and everybody. This is the big warning I've been trying to tell you guys. Do you see what is happening? How people have co-opted that word progressive, and they're just basically using it to say, yeah, the progressives are supposed to be the pro-Israel people. Nah, if you're progressive, you're supposed to be for humanity. You're supposed to be for humanitarian causes, human rights. So why would you support the genocidal state of Israel that is killing the Palestinian people, that swept them off of their own land and put them into an open air prison? That's not progressive. That is colonization. That's colonialism. It is the final stage of colonialism. And this is a warning I pointed out before. You have to be very careful for those who still support the progressive through the Democratic Party lane. You got to be very careful and hope that those particular people who are progressives in the Democratic Party do not water down what that means so that now progressive is actually to the right of being progressive. This is why I said it is so important. There are some things you cannot bend on. There has to be red lines at some point in time. And I would think a genocide would be a red line. There were progressives who wanted you to overlook that. This is how you get here. When you have a Van Jones who is moving the line of what it means to be progressive. This is where you get. We'll let it finish here.
Those are liberals. Those are my people.
The most liberal in the country.
Those are my people. I'm a progressive. So Hamas pushes through with bulldozers and butchers my people. Progressive, liberal, peace-loving, social justice people were murdered and butchered.
So now the Israelis are social justice people. Does everybody see what is happening here? The same social justice people that don't like black people there. The same social justice people that spit on Brandon Tatum and he bragged about only getting spit on once. The same social justice people that harass Christians who go there. The same social justice people that called Palestinians animals, savages, said kill them all, said the babies are Hamas, a camera is Hamas, the dog is Hamas. The same social justice people that had pro-Israel paid influencers go to a historically black college to harass the black students on campus. Van Jones said those are his people. They don't even like Van Jones. They just use him. He's a puppet. Congratulations. You're a puppet. That's it. They use you for that. They use people like Van Jones so they can point to him and say, see, we're not racist. Van Jones is here. We're not racist. There's Ethiopians that live here. Won't tell you that they sterilized them against their will. Won't tell you that part. This person said it well. The yellow ribbon says it all, Van. You wore sympathy for the hostages while mocking Gaza's dead babies. This wasn't a slip. It was a worldview. Look at it. It's Van Jones. If we were back during the days, it's so funny. People try to say things about me, but I'm going to keep it very real. First of all, I stand up and advocate for black people. You never see me not do that on this show. Van Jones, I really do believe, had we been back during slavery times, he would be the one to sell out. He would have been the one that would say, yes, master, can I shine your shoes? What can I do for you? He would have been the one to throw the slaves that were trying to rebel under the bus. He'd be the snitch. This is who he used to be. See, this is back in the day when Van Jones had dreads. I think he has dreads here. When he was an activist.
Now, the students can do that in 1960. The students can do that in 1970. The students can do that in 1985 and 86. In 1993, when we have the United States government building a death camp, a concentration camp for black people who have done nothing wrong but get sick and want justice. That's all they've done wrong. If we can't close that death camp, if this generation cannot prevent another Japanese American internment in our lifetime, we should all get haircuts and go get regular jobs and give it up.
Yeah, it's funny because that's what he did. He got a haircut, got a regular job, and gave it up. This is what I was talking about when I said they take people who are activists. They get people who are activists and they offer them something. They get someone who has a bold voice, particularly a lot of times, especially in the Black activism. They'll find someone that has a bold voice, someone that is, as they say, well-spoken. They'll get them and say, wow, that person will be powerful if we could get them on the pro-Israel side. They would be a great pro-Israel politician, a great pro-Israel advocate or commentator. That guy would be great. But he's going to have to get rid of the dreads. We're going to have to put him in a suit. We're going to have to make him look a little bit different. Van Jones sold out. That's why he turned off those comments on that apology, because he knows people know how he changed. This guy switches his position depending on who's in the room. And I want to remind you of this since he brought up money. Shout out to Black Agenda Report. Let's all remember when Jeff Bezos gave Van Jones that $100 million. In 2023, in August of 2023, right before October 7th, something happened with Van Jones and that money. Van Jones forced out of nonprofitdream.org despite Bezos' huge contribution. Want to get into this a little bit more here. Yada, yada. Van Jones was praised by Jeff Bezos for being a great philanthropic leader. In the same breath, Jeff Bezos gave Jones a hefty check of $100 million to use as needed. Everybody remember this? Now, Jones was elated by this grand action and was believed to have used it toward his nonprofit Dream.org. Dream.org is a nonprofit co-founded by Van Jones and Matt Haney, focusing on addressing climate change, mass incarceration, and poverty by advocating for new legislation, teaching low-income children how to code, and creating green jobs. However, according to the Daily Beast, Jones left the board this summer after struggling to agree on the organization's direction with the leadership team. Allegedly, a direct source is saying Jones did not leave willingly. So, when people give you money, if someone gives you $100 million, they're not giving this to you just because they think you're nice or you're doing a good job or they just like you. There is a string attached, regardless of what Jeff Bezos said. Now, they gave you that money to use towards the organization that he was a part of. Then he was ousted from the organization. In other words, the money was meant to be used in a different way. You really think Jeff Bezos is going to give you $100 million for nothing? Van Jones has moved in such ways where he just, like I said, he wants to fit in with whoever is at the table at that point in time. Now, I didn't watch this man cry on CNN multiple times. The actor in him. I have watched him sit up there and talk about how do you go to your children after Trump won in 2016. I heard him talk about in 2024 how progressives got it wrong. Not progressive, excuse me. The Democratic Party got it wrong. And that's why Trump won in 2024. He just jumps on whatever is there. But prior to that, he was telling you that Kamala was the way to go. He was telling you she's running a great campaign. Then afterwards, he tells you, oh, no, they got it wrong. It's just all over the place. He's just, this is another black face in a high place. Van Jones is not there to really help out you. As you can see how he got booted from his own organization after they got that money. And now he's just a pro-Israel puppet. That is what Van Jones is. That is who Van Jones has become. That's who he's out there advocating for. When last time you hear Van Jones talk about mass incarceration? When last time? So he sold out to get a bigger paycheck. That's what's happening, folks. He is not sorry for that comment. He only made an apology because he got hammered by a lot of freaking people online from different sides of the political aisle. That's why he came out and said what he said. Not truly because he's sorry. So Van Jones got a surprise, and I don't think he's having a good week. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.